Hi, I'm the Director for Common Knowledge Trust, and we produce Birthing Better Childbirth Preparation online course. So in this video, I want to talk to you about the overview of the body skills. Now, as I've said in previous videos, all of these skills were developed by families, hundreds of them in the early 1970s. It took us 15 years to really develop the extensiveness of these skills, because there is not a linear set of skills. It's kind of like driving a car. You don't just learn to steer first before you learn to put your foot on the gas pedal or learn how to brake. So when you back up and parallel park, you're using a set of complex skills at the same time. And this is true about birth. The only difference is that we don't get to practice birth beforehand, and that causes people a lot of anxiety, even those people who feel very positive about their birth experience. You don't know what your birth is going to be like, so it's hard to know what to practice and what skills you'll actually use. And that's why it's important that you really do learn as many of the skills in the Birthing Better Childbirth Preparation online resource as you can. But some of them you'll identify more with, and those are the ones that you really want to deepen and learn to a greater degree. And we'll talk about visualizing birth and how you can imagine, because the human mind is quite unique. It has the ability to stay in the present, which we don't do a lot of the time. We tend to think about past experiences, and we tend to think about future experiences. So even though you don't know what your birth is going to be like, we can set up in our mind, just like athletes do, an imagination, imagining what the birth will be like. But what's important is that you imagine your capacity to use skills, no matter how your birth unfolds, and have a commitment to using skills, no matter how your birth unfolds. So one of the things that happened in the 70s, because these skills were developed in the United States at a time when Lamaze and the Bradley method were very popular, but going out of popularity as the choice-based childbirth trend that we're in now began to replace the skills-based approach from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so what happened was that people with Lamaze and Bradley had learned some breathing techniques and some relaxation techniques. Be like a rag doll, breathe in your nose and out your mouth. But what happened is that people still found that their babies got stuck, or they found that they couldn't cope with the labor contractions, or as cesareans began to be more frequent, because they weren't more frequent. Before, you had to cut up and down your belly, and you were given a general anesthetic. It was very, very, very serious. So women labored and labored and labored and labored. But women didn't really want to have that scar on their belly, so doctors worked out how to do what's called the bikini cut. They didn't name it that because they wanted to name it that. They named it that because bikinis were coming into fashion, and women didn't want to have a scar on their belly if they had a surgical birth. And it was good, too, because the uterus is more protected, and women who have had a previous cesarean now can go on to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean or a VBAC. So what we found was that we didn't have any understanding of how to prepare our pregnant bodies for birth. And that makes sense, really, when we think about it. I mean, when you get pregnant, until recently, you didn't know you were pregnant for months and months and months. And you can't really feel your baby move for some time between 16 weeks, which is 4 months, to 20 weeks, to sometimes 22 weeks, which is 5 months. So you're 5 months pregnant before you really feel your baby move. At 24 weeks, your uterus is up around your navel, and your baby's getting bigger. And of course, we all know that the baby continues to get bigger and your uterus begins to grow. So we tend to focus on the uterus. We see the uterus getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the baby getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But unless we have a cesarean in which the baby comes out of our belly on the top of our pelvis, where the bikini cut is, the baby has to pass through this bony structure called a tube. It has to open up this diaphragm called the cervix. And once it's done those two things, it has to then come down through the top of the vagina or birth canal, and then it has to bend around the pubic bone and then point towards the opening of the vagina and open us up. We have a three-dimensional object inside us that's quite big. And so what we discovered in the 70s was we just didn't really have a clue. And we were just hoping that these things happened, that our cervix opened in a reasonable amount of time, that the pain was reasonable, that the baby moved through the pelvis, and that the baby moved through the birth canal and opened up our vagina in a reasonable amount of time. But without skills, then we were just hoping. So the ebook that I'm going to talk to you about is the overview of the body skills. And what we discovered, because we nitpicked and picked apart this stuff, was that if a baby got stuck in the bony pelvis, that was different than if the cervix didn't dilate. That's soft tissue. If the baby got stuck in the lower part of the pelvis, either the tailbone was quite long and curved under, or the tissue of our vagina was tight, that was the difference between the bony structure and the soft tissue. So in the overview of the body skills, we introduce you to both of those concepts. You want to create space and mobility in the bony structure. And the video segments of the Birthing Better online course specifically go through those skills. And you want to learn how to prepare the soft tissue down there, and you want to learn how to soften in the soft tissue down there, because your baby's not coming out your shoulders. It's not coming out your ears. So your job is to soften inside your pelvis and to be able to create space and to reduce any tension. So it's really important that you just pragmatically and practically learn how to work with the pelvic part of your pregnant body so that you can prepare it to open up, be mobile, be soft while your baby is trying to be born. Your baby has to come down through and out our pregnant body, which then becomes a birthing body. So the overview of the body work talks about both the bony structure and the soft tissue. And then we have two ebooks and some video segments that are directly related to the bony structure and directly related to the soft tissue. And we also have an audio that helps you prepare the inside, all of the inside of the soft tissue of your vagina. And if you're sitting there going, oh, yuck, you have got to get over that. You know, every woman has some experience with inside her vagina, whether it's fishing out a tampon, used to be putting in a diaphragm, used to be dealing with yeast infections, or our menstrual cycle with sponges, or helping a man come inside us. I mean, there are all sorts of things that we do down there. And we can't have an attitude that when we're pregnant, the concept of preparing our birth canal or our vagina to let this out is unappealing to us. Now, many of the families that were the initial Birthing Better families were very religious families. They came from all different ethnic backgrounds and often were very faith-based in all sorts of religions. They did not do the internal work in the middle of the street. They did it in the privacy of their own home. Fathers, 80% of partners helped because the women needed the help. And many women also did it for themselves so that they could understand what they were feeling, what they were experiencing inside their body. But we'll talk a bit more about the internal work in another video. So we just want you to know that there is an ebook on the overview of the body skills and how to prepare your bony structure and your soft tissue during pregnancy. And start around 24 weeks and learn a little at a time. But if you're 38 weeks when you're watching this anything you learn is better than not. Do not get into the attitudes, it's too late, I can't do anything. No, you're just more highly motivated. And many Birthing Better families didn't start at 24 weeks. They want you to start at 24 weeks because they know it's easier to learn over those last 16 weeks. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.